There is one prayer, one single prayer, that God has never once ignored. Not one time in 6,000 years of human history. You may have prayed for healing and waited. You may have prayed for provision and heard silence. You may have wept into your pillow, asking God for an answer that never came the way you wanted. But there is a prayer that never returns void. A prayer heaven cannot say no to. 1 John 5:14 says, and this is the confidence that we have in him, that if we ask anything according to his will, he heareth us. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you will never pray the same way again. Most of us were taught to pray for outcomes. Heal this. Fix that. Give me this job, this spouse, this breakthrough. And there is nothing wrong with bringing our requests to God. The Bible tells us to. Philippians 4:6 says, be careful for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication. With thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God. But somewhere along the way, we started treating prayer like a transaction instead of a relationship. We pray, we wait, and if the answer doesn't come the way we scripted it, we call it unanswered. We call it silence. We call it a God who doesn't care. But what if the problem was never God's willingness to answer? What if the problem was the prayer itself? The prayer God always answers is not a prayer for what you want. It is the prayer for what he wants, the prayer of surrender. Lord, not my will, but thine be done. Look at Gethsemane. Jesus himself, hours from the cross, sweating drops like blood, facing the most brutal death known to man, prayed this exact prayer. Luke 22:42 says, Father, if thou be willing, remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but thine be done. Think about this. If anyone had the right to ask God to change the plan, it was Jesus. And yet he didn't demand. He didn't bargain. He surrendered. And that prayer, the prayer of surrender, was answered. Not the way flesh wanted. Not the way that avoided pain. But exactly the way heaven required. 3 days later, the answer walked out of a tomb. 1 Samuel 1:10 says, and she was in bitterness of soul, and prayed unto the Lord, and wept sore. Hannah didn't just ask for a son. She surrendered the outcome to God, promising to give the child back to his service. 1 Samuel 1:27 says, for this child I prayed, and the Lord hath given me my petition which I asked of him. Also, Hannah's prayer wasn't answered because she cried the loudest or wanted it the most. It was answered because she prayed in alignment with God's purpose, not just her own pain. Maybe you've been praying for a breakthrough and calling it faith when really you've been demanding your outcome instead of surrendering to his. God is not a vending machine. He is not obligated to hand over whatever we insert enough prayers into.
He is a father, one who sees the whole story, from beginning to end, while we can only see the chapter we're standing in. Isaiah 55:8-9 says, for my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, saith the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. That's not a rebuke. That's a comfort. It means the God you're praying to see further than your pain, further than your fear, further than the 4 walls of tonight's tears. Jeremiah 29:11 says, for I know the thoughts that I think toward you, saith the Lord, thoughts of peace, and not of evil, to give you an expected end. Surrender is not passivity. It's not giving up. It is the boldest act of faith a human being can offer, because it says, God, I trust you even when I cannot trace you. It looks like praying for healing and adding, but if not, I will still trust you. It looks like praying for the job and adding, but if this door closes, I believe you have another one. It looks like praying for a relationship to be restored and adding, but Lord, your will is safer than I want. Proverbs 3:5-6 says, trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. This is not a weakness. This is warfare, because the enemy wants you to believe. Unanswered prayer means an absent God, when really it may mean a God who is protecting you from an answer you're not ready to carry. So today, stop praying only for the answer you want. Pray the prayer he always answers. Lord, not my will, but thine. I trust you with what I cannot see. I trust you with the timing. I trust you with the outcome. I trust you with the silence. That prayer never fails. Not once. Not ever. Because it's not a prayer asking God to bend to your will. It's a prayer asking to be aligned with his. If God only answered the prayers we understood, we would never grow. We would never trust. We would never become who he created us to be. But when we pray for his will, every single time, without exception, heaven says yes. So pray boldly. Pray honestly. Bring him your fear, your need, your desperate request. But end it the way Jesus did in the garden. Not my will, but thine be done. That's the prayer God always answers. If you like these prayer teachings, kindly like, share, and subscribe for more. God bless you.